Hello, everybody. I am one of your hosts, Scott, coming to you from Toronto.
And I'm Andy, coming to you from an increasingly warm United Kingdom.
Yeah, I think we're both in that club, eh? Welcome, everybody, to the Tea Timbits podcast, global perspectives on business development to help you prosper. Our theme for the month of July, the hot, sticky, sweaty month of July, is mindset and culture. I don't know if either one of those two things can help you escape the heat, Andy. We're going to get into more of a discussion around setting culture and what that means. Before we do you want to enlighten us with anything on your mind these days, Andy?
Well, I do actually. Yes, I've been recently planning some large events, and those events have involved live shows and culminating in a music festival last weekend, and it all went very well. But what I realised afterwards was that. I had, in the lead up to all of this, been very much neglecting myself, my health, and my mindset. Funnily enough,
Yeah.
and I had been all in on making sure that the events themselves worked well, went well, and didn't have any failures, and that all worked perfectly fine. But the problem is, the expense of that has been my health, has been my sleep, has been all of those sort of things. And, I do try and maintain a sort of regular, healthy routine because I know the impact of traveling and working long hours can have on the body. So, I got into many years ago into taking on a process of trying to look after myself. And then when it came to the crunch now of doing something new, I neglected that, and I noticed it when I went for a walk into town the other day because it was nice weather and everything, and I went for a walk into town, and by the time I got into town, I felt I was a little bit out of breath, and I'm like, "What? Who is this person?" I mean, I've been on like 100-kilometer hikes in the mountains carrying 60-kilo rucksacks without blinking, and yet I go for a casual walk into town in the afternoon, and it's like, oh, I'm a little bit out of breath when I get there, and I mean, it's not very far. It's like 5 kilometers or something, so it's not very far. And yes, whilst I walked a bit briefly and it was a bit warm, it shouldn't be something that impacted on me. So it made me realize that the last 3-4 weeks where I have completely neglected looking after myself does have an impact, and it's unsustainable. I mean, I've been sleeping 3 or 4 hours, going to bed at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then getting up around 5, 6 as usual. And it's just, over time that starts to have an impact. I've been dropping the exercise. I've been, not looking after myself. I've been basically jumping behind the computer, on the telephone, and in the cars and stuff, and out to people for several weeks now, leading up to these things, and it's very easy for people to fall into that habit. I mean, this was a habit I was in for a while before, and it's one that I believe has come back again now, and it's just become aware of it. And I wanted to share it because it is incredibly important that we all fall for this myth of it's like hustle a little bit harder, sleep shorter hours, and the sacrifice, you can sacrifice your health because ultimately you'll have the wealth to be able to look after yourself and pay for the best doctors and things like that. But reality, it's like you if you burn yourself out, you're gonna build a brittle empire, and it's gonna all crumble as soon as you allow that to happen. So it's just not worth it. Look after yourself. Dedicate that time, calendar that time to look after yourself and to do these things as much as anything else. It doesn't matter the events that you have, the meetings you have, the customers you need to meet, the travel you need to do, all of that sort of stuff. None of that matters if you're not there to enjoy it and you're not there to to actually experience it. So look after yourself.
I love it. So just to prove to our listeners how little we prepare for these episodes, why don't we sort of spin that into a conversation more about sort of those, like what it means to have a personal culture and setting some of those boundaries that then I think sort of help influence your, the culture at work as well. As you were speaking, and Andy is nodding his head in agreement that it's okay to go in this direction. So thank you for allowing me to steer the episode where I want to go. We talked about leadership setting culture a couple of episodes ago. I think when you're an individual contributor, there's kind of a different set of criteria, collection of tactics, position, posture that you need to take. And I think this also kind of begs the same question about, like, is culture defined or created, right? I think it's a little bit of both, like I said before. In this sense, there's a certain boundary and process and rigor that's necessary in order to stay accountable to yourself, maintain health, a healthy mind, and be productive and effective at work. And being productive and effective at work can be a great culture. I know I've said it before, but we don't have a lot of people that come to the office very regularly anymore. But when you do, it's pretty freaking quiet, and everybody's kind of got their headphones in, and they're really excited to get into. Well, I don't know if they're excited, but let's not oversell it. The culture is definitely like, we do good work, and that's what keeps everybody coming in, and our turnover is low, and things like that. And so that culture is partly because we look for people to join our team that are going to be compatible with that kind of a culture, but then it also requires those people themselves to have their own behaviors, whether it's intentional or not, that sort of continue to support and shape the way that goes. What's your sort of thought or reflection on how individuals set their own culture or have it contribute to the organization?
Well, as I mentioned when we first,
do you even agree?
No, I do. And when we first brought up this topic a few weeks ago, one of the things that we both agreed on is the culture isn't, it's not what's in your mission statement. It's not what's written down there. It's what happens when you're not in the room. It's, it's how people behave. It's how people act. It's how people, do things. And, in your example there, people come into the office because they're going to do some work, and they put their headphones on and they get on with that work. I've been to plenty of offices where the culture is very relaxed and casual, and you just wonder, is anyone actually doing any work at all? Because they're all standing around talking. They're all in the canteen. They're all having cups of coffee at each other's desks. And you're like, is anything actually happening here? And the culture is that, it doesn't matter so long as you're in the office kind of thing, as opposed to actually getting on with the work or being accountable or delivering things. And I think, as you alluded to, having those non-negotiables in your culture is very important. Things like, I don't know, like, we don't tolerate gossip. It can be a good thing, because that can be, really, really damaging in an organization. It doesn't matter if it's a small business or a huge global business. Gossip, rumors, and things like that, they can really actually end up souring a culture, and they can become an ongoing issue. And things like responding to customers, responding to your colleagues, that you have a process of doing so in a particular time period. So say within 24 hours, for example. It's just a culture. It's just what you do. We always respond to people within 24 hours. In my context with the with the music industry, for example, we don't cancel rehearsals last minute, let's say, things like that. It's like, yeah, okay, someone's delayed, someone's not showing up. Well, we don't cancel it. We adjust it. We make reasonable adjustments. And it's not about being strict. It's about defining sort of those, going back to my roots now, the rules of engagement, really. And how you act, how you operate, and how you do things on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I think a certain amount of sort of top down culture helps sort of set certain boundaries, but then how you operate as an individual within that is pretty critical too. I mean, you can imagine a culture where, like, to extend my example to one negative extreme, it's like, why are you talking to anybody? Just come in and get your work done and go home. Like, we are about sort of every ounce of efficiency that we can extract, and that is a culture. It's not a very attractive one. It's not going to help you maintain employees or probably even provide satisfaction to your clients. I think individuals need to be careful is not the right word, but self-aware of expressing their own personality and recognizing when that is compatible with the culture, and even look for where it sort of pressures the culture a little bit. And then the self-awareness part is like, was that good? Did that work? Did that have a net benefit, or did everybody kind of entertain me for a moment and not actually embrace it? My wife was telling me a story about at her work, which is a larger organization than where we are, and one department had started a book club, and just because somebody wanted to do it, and then other people were like, "Why is there so much sort of enjoyment coming out of the lunchroom at lunchtime? I want in on that." And just sort of then all of a sudden, you actually, you work with somebody, but you're exchanging an email or issuing a PO or something very perfunctory, right? But all of a sudden now, you're actually getting to know folks in and around you that you don't work with on a regular basis. And that was just an organic sort of individual exercise. And nobody came into the lunchroom and said, "Why are you sitting in here and get back to your desks," kind of thing. So it's a chance for the individual to express their that kind of personality interest and develop the culture that was recognized as being positive by the business and encouraged. And now they, I think, have to meet occasionally, not at lunchtime, so that the conversation can last a little bit longer, not impact productivity.
And it's a good thing that cultures can evolve and that boundaries can move. I mean, I have for many years, as people who know me know, lived very much on the motto of be bold, be brave, be different.
Right.
And in order to be bold and brave and different, you need to have boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have boundaries, you can't test those boundaries. You can't explore outside those boundaries. You're just living in chaos and anarchy. And whilst I come from a very punk mindset background and stuff, anarchy is a desire of a teenager's sort of utopia, but the reality is it doesn't work. And you need to have boundaries, and you need to have purpose, and you need to have goals, and you need to have structure. And that doesn't mean they have to be rigid. It doesn't mean they have to be locked in place. You need to encourage people and allow people to feel safe that the culture you have is built on boundaries and built on structure, but that it's also okay to test those boundaries, to explore outside those boundaries, to try something new, try something different. And if it doesn't work, learn from it, educate others, and then develop accordingly. And that is really important.
I was just going to say that, like, that learning and that whatnot might actually mean recognizing that these two pieces are from completely wrong puzzles.
Completely, yeah.
Because I think as the individual setting those boundaries, you may quickly find that you're just in the wrong place, and it's very interesting because in some organizations, you need people that have different personalities and characteristics to do different job functions, and quite often that creates internal friction and frustration, and um, uh, and can often be seen as a cultural mismatch, as opposed to, well, wait a minute, if we just are aware and know when we get to express different elements of our culture at different times and different places and different circumstances. um, I think it's really important to be aware of that dynamic, that sometimes the culture can look different depending on where you're standing. And that doesn't mean that it's broken or that they're necessarily incompatible. There may need to be sort of different, sort of branches of the tree that pop up. But the point I was making initially is sometimes you just need to recognize that for me to be true to who I am, for me to be as effective in my career as an individual contributor, as somebody who's contributing effectively to a whole as part of a team, I need to find a new team.
Yeah, no, it's completely right. And I think when you're building all of this, though, you need to create a framework, I suppose.
The organization or the individual?
Both, because as an organization, there needs to exist a sort of cultural non-negotiables, and those need to be reflected by the individuals as well. And the individuals coming into the organization need to understand, this is what we do, this is how things are, and if it's not for you, then this business is not for you. But this isn't just about staff, this is also about customers
and vendor and partners.
And partners, exactly. Yeah, that's right. And I think when you're in a business and you're creating all of this, it is important to write down 3 or 4 sort of things that you expect from everybody. Staff, clients, partners, artists, whatever it may be, and then you have those 3 or 4 things that you will never accept as well. Right. And of course, those things become the filters, the boundaries, and they ultimately end up building your brand, because that culture builds the brand, and brand builds culture, and so on and so on. And the important thing is, of course, to enforce them and make sure that they are
review
consistent
and reflect on them regularly. Because I've also seen scenarios where you're humming along and everything's fine. Yes. And then in a partnership, sort of one person's posture, character, culture shifts, and it suddenly is unrecognizable. It's sort of the frog in the boiling water, right? And then there's friction and conflict, and everyone's like, what the heck happened? Well, wait a minute, maybe we both diverge, but there was never a conscientious recognition that the compatibility parameters have adjusted. We covered a lot there, Andy.
We did, and I think just before we go, because I last time I remembered a couple of things before, just after the episode had finished, and I want to make sure that I get them in this time. But it's important to remember that you can't build a high performance team in a low standards environment. You have to have defined standards, and you have to aim for high quality and high standards. And leadership, it's about building a space where the right people thrive and the wrong ones opt out.
Yep,
it's the polite way of putting it, I guess.
I like it. Anything else to share?
Culture isn't what you preach, it's what you permit.
Hey.
Been working on that all episode. It finally came to me.
Thank you for summarizing. I'm happy to close it out with that insight. So thank you for coming up with it. If you would like to listen to more about mindset and culture, as we have been this month, we've got a few episodes that have already been out there, and we've got more to come. and you can go find our entire back catalog and get in touch with us by going to teaandtimbits.com. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Scott. I shall leave the sauna now.